Welcome to a brand new podcast, Little Warriors. I'm your host, Rebecca Horan, and on episode 9, I'm speaking to the founder of Chirp, the child protection software, Rena Maycock. But before we get into it, thanks to Loopy Loo by Lidl for supporting Little Warriors. I never miss an opportunity to get into Lidl to stock up for so many bits for my kids, especially because my youngest is still in their Loopy Loo nappies and they've got the Loopy Loo biodegradable water wipes and the pants right up to size 7 as well. And do make sure to keep an eye on the Lidl Plus app for regular offers on the Loopy Loo range. And thanks again to Loopy Loo by Lidl for supporting the podcast. Right, let's get into it. I'm very honoured on this episode to be joined by an absolute genius of a woman, or more like a machine of a woman. I feel like she does not stop. Rena Maycock is on the podcast today. An absolute pleasure because this woman is time poor, to say the least. Founder of Chirp, a child protection software. Yeah. So it's a piece of, yes, okay, we'll get into all of that. Hoping to change the game and game change everything to do with our children and what they do and what they see and what they're exposed to on their phones. Rena, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Just in the know always. So always worked, I think a bit of background would be important, always worked in commercial sales, correct?
Yeah, so started off in the media. So you and I probably would have crossed paths many times. Radio stations, started off as a salesperson in the likes of 98 FM, then moved on. I had stints in Sunshine, then moved to TV. I was in Sky TV for a while. And then the last job I had for the Man, I was chief executive of a group of radio stations. And then left that, started my own company and went on from there.
So started your own company. What was that and what did you want to do?
Well, originally a matchmaking company, which is still going strong, which my husband Feargal runs. And then around 7 or 8 years ago, by the time I started having my kids, I kept getting served images and stories I didn't want to see. I was served with headlines of kids that had been systematically cyberbullied, groomed, sextorted from, coerced and pushed into suicide. And the one common thread in all these stories was parents didn't know there was a problem until it was far too late. And even though my kids were only toddlers, I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before they were knocking on the door looking for a phone. And you'll have probably seen the latest Ofcom figures. 19% of 3 to 5 year olds have their own smartphone. So,
no, I didn't know that.
Well, there you go. Now there's a figure to depress you.
In Ireland? No, in
usually
the UK, because Ofcom.
Ofcom is the UK, but they very much mirror what goes on here. We did our own piece of research here that said 20%. Okay. Yeah, I know. So, I was thinking it's only a matter of time. Why is technology not dealing with this problem for parents? And I am not. Why would they?
Because it's addictive and then we just keep buying the things.
Correct. And then I am not a technologist. So I was very much approaching this as a skilled generalist and a parent. So I took a deep dive into the parental control market to see what tools were available for parents, specifically to protect their kids against harms on smartphones. Okay. Because parents are most worried about smartphones because they take them into their room on their own.
Privacy in that.
They leave the house with the phones. And the state of the art back then is pretty similar to the state of the art right now, 8 years later, and that's parental control apps. So I don't know whether you've ever looked on the app stores for these things, but there's like 250 parental control apps on the app stores.
And what do they do? Go on.
So they all share a variety of features. They're quite similar to each other in the main. So they have geofencing and geo-tracking. So you can
see where your kid is. Yeah, great.
Gambling and porn website blocking.
Okay.
For standard reasons. And then they've got access restriction and monitoring, so you can stop your child becoming addicted to their phone. So it would switch off the Wi-Fi.
Like my Instagram says to me, 5 minutes left today.
Correct.
Great, whatever, yeah.
Correct.
And I can overlay
exactly, very easily.
Yeah.
And kids do circumvent these things very easily. So,
okay. So they're kind of these base level. What you're saying is there are apps there, Rebecca. If you're a little one, like, I mean, I'm not there yet because I have a 6 and a 3 year old. But, there will come a time. And what you're saying is, yes, Rebecca, you can track if she's in Dundrum Shopping Centre or in a field. Yes, you can say, but it's not a cure-all. And we know that they're always going to find a way, or their mate has found a way, or this, right?
Yeah, so they're very functional, and they are very worthy functions. I mean, obviously, we don't want our kids accessing pornography websites. We want to be able to find them. We don't want them becoming addicted to their phones.
So if I'm a kid and I have a smartphone and I haven't handed them a brick Nokia, which is what I'm going to be doing with my child till they're 16 or so, you've given them the smartphone, you've given them the grenade, right? And what you're saying is once they have it, and unless you download the Instagrams or TikToks and there's nothing really on it, if they go into their Safari or their Google Chrome, they can put in porn. And what you're saying is if you have that app in place, it goes, no, you can't get in there, correct?
If you've got these parental control apps on there, they'll block standard known pornography websites, like Pornhub, that kind of stuff. From being
freebies.
accessed.
Yeah.
Exactly. But none of the parental control apps were dealing with cyberbullying and grooming. Now, cyberbullying and grooming generally happens within messaging apps or within social media apps.
Sure. And it's more insipid.
Exactly. And what I was thinking was, why is there no solution to this? Now, some of the parental control apps were saying that they were dealing with cyberbullying and grooming, but if you looked under the hood, what they were actually doing was they can't access data in other apps. So it was limited to sending you a notification saying your child has added a new contact.
Okay.
Or your child has texted this person 8 times today.
Okay.
They weren't dealing with any of the actual content. And
Okay.
I was thinking, why is nobody doing this? There's a very obvious market gap.
Okay, giving me the creeps, yeah.
I mean, I even looked at it. I was thinking, maybe I'm the only parent. And I looked, there was a web-wide study done by the Irish government at the time to assess parents' main concerns when they gave their child a smartphone. And there were 4 main equal concerns. Parents were worried their child would access pornography, spend too much time online,
addicted, yeah,
be groomed or be cyberbullied. So the pornography and the access restriction were being super served by this 250 parental control apps. The other 50% of parents' needs weren't being met at all by the state-of-the-art.
No, because they're much more
controls.
creepy deepy. Like, it's different when you're an adult and you can control, if you want someone to be stalking you, you can go about it and go to a guard. You know what I mean? Like, as in you have the control to do something about that. Obviously, it's not good either way, but I'm saying there's a different thing. There's a responsibility there.
Yeah.
And you'd hope to God there's an intellectual authority over that and you can get help. If you're a child, like you're saying, and there's a grooming or there's a bullying or there's insipid messaging or there's a nasty, you don't really know until you have a handle of the phone or handle of the child. So that's what you're saying is a huge concern.
So parents had the 50% of parents' needs that weren't being met on the cyberbullying and grooming. I was thinking, right, there's very clearly a product market fit here. There's a huge market gap for a solution in this. Why is no one doing it? So I started to speak to technologists to figure out why no one was doing it when there's such a clear market gap. And figured out no one was doing it because it's hard, right? So not to get too technical about it, but apps operate on a peer-to-peer system. So you can download all of the state-of-the-art of parental control apps to your child's device, but they sit at the same permissions layer, the application layer, as Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp, Discord. And it's in messaging apps and social media apps that cyberbullying and grooming happens. So parental control apps can't access data within other apps. So technically,
why? Because they're encrypted or
they sit at the same permissions layer. It's a deliberate security feature to stop man-in-the-middle attacks, that kind of thing. So effectively, if you're at application layer, you can never access data within other apps. So you can never ever detect and block harmful user-generated content in other messaging apps, and that's why nobody was dealing with it.
Yes, but I guess it's the whole thing of like what is harmful, what is so. You can also blanket say, I'm not downloading WhatsApp for you, love, you're 10 or 11 or 12, right? So you can blanket say that. But then if that's how they communicate, or Facebook Messenger, TikTok, I mean, I'm not in the know, but if that's how they're communicating, what you're saying is unless you're taking their phone off them every night to go through those messages, you don't know. Is that what you're saying? And by harmful, you're saying there's no alert or detection, or because encryption, because they don't know what harmful. I mean, this is where I get really confused. It's like the meta thing with Facebook. Like if we put up content and I'm swearing like Billy O in this social clip on this podcast, it won't be allowed to sit on Facebook today.
Yeah.
When I put out an Instagram video of the podcast, a little social clip, and maybe there's something that they could see as triggering or harmful or whatever, they won't let us put it up. So there are things there as adults that is,
That's posts.
Yeah.
This is private messaging.
Right.
And comments on your child's own social media posts. That's where cyberbullying and grooming often starts. So,
God, so it's an underlayer.
It's an underlayer. So at application layer, which is where all of the parental controls are, they can't access data in other apps, so they can never deal with cyberbullying and grooming. If you want to deal with cyberbullying and grooming, you need to be able to access the likes of WhatsApp or Discord, Messenger, Facebook, etc. The earliest point in the tech stack you can do that is the kernel level, which means that you need to develop an operating system modification, and it needs to be built into the phone at point of manufacture. It can't be downloaded by you going onto a website onto your child's phone. You need to physically buy a new device with this software on it. If more than 50% of your child's friends have a smartphone, then you're in a quandary, because you ironically might set them up for bullying if you don't give them a phone, because they're harassed by exclusion.
I know, but I'll always argue this to the death, and Dr. Coleman knocked on, exclusion, and I was like, but you have to take a stance for the benefit of your kid, even if it's an unpopular choice for you and the kid.
It's best if you do a deal with all the parents.
Right.
It's best if you get everybody to agree.
Yeah.
But I understand why parents, at Chirp, what we try and do is we create a tool for parents that so that when they want to give their child a smartphone, they don't feel judged. They need tools, not judgment.
Yeah, okay, I get that
so they
too.
can get this tool and they can feel
It's
a little
like
bit
everyone,
better.
you got Isabella, yes,
Exactly.
because everyone else had it. And then you're right, there's more parental guilt, there's more judgment and shame. There's less connection when you do want to connect with your child, or she goes on a camp, or they're separated and she's with her dad for the weekend, right? I get that.
Yeah.
But it's still, the overriding fear is the grenade system. So I understand what you're saying, Rena, and I think it's really intelligent, because you're saying, Rebecca, you can't avoid everything, right?
Yeah.
But then at the heart of it is like, yes, but we're doing it for a reason. So like Chirp thing is mind blowing to me, because I think you're going to help a lot of us get out of this quandary, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just a blank bland no.
And that's the thing, because you won't know until you're in the situation.
No, and I'm
because
not.
If 29 kids in the class are all on Snapchat and your child is the only one that isn't, then the problem is your child they do get excluded.
But why are 29 kids on Snapchat?
And then even the thing is, even with WhatsApp, and this is a mistake that parents make, they think they do a deal with their child. I'll give you a phone, but at any point in time, I need to be able to take that phone off you and have a look at what your messages are.
I need your code, yeah.
And then parents think that's the solution. That's great. And she never stops me from taking the phone. And I go into WhatsApp. Oh, that's all fine. But there's hidden chat functions in WhatsApp.
Well, we can archive, we can delete a message, you can do...
Correct. And but there's also hidden chat. So a groomer may be, onto your child and direct them into an app where there's a hidden chat function.
Jeez.
And you think that you have visibility, but you don't. Because you don't know if there's a hidden chat.
Sure.
So...
Sure, okay.
Parents need these types of tools, some sort of technology that can help them to deal with these issues. Because even if they've got disappearing messages, or even if they do delete messages, with Chirp on the device, Chirp still has those messages. Wow. It still keeps them.
Tell us about... Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty. Then we'll go back to you as a parent and how this all came about. So Chirp is what? And what's it going to do? Because it sounds incredible.
So we developed an operating system modification, and that's at the kernel level of the operating system. And it's at that point that we can access all incoming and outgoing data, including in encrypted apps. We compare that data against our own small language models in the 3 problem domains of cyberbullying, grooming and suicide and self-harm.
How do the fucking apps feel about this? How do the WhatsApps and the messages?
We don't get into the apps.
It's nothing to do with them.
We do it at the operating system layer. So it's nothing to do with them. Now, to be honest, we're about 6 months out from market. Our model is to license to telcos. We find that we're very much pushing an open door with telcos, because they want to adopt really disruptive technologies that helps children to not be harmed by the data that's served to them over that network.
Great.
There are some that
they don't want to become unpopular and everyone bitching about them in the media.
To be fair, in my dealings with telcos, and we're dealing with tier 1 telcos all over the world, they very much want to take responsibility. They want to be seen to be pioneers. They want to give parents solutions. And they understand that legislation is driving this, but they want to even get out ahead of that legislation and make sure that they're taking responsibility. So we find that we're pushing an open door with them, and they've got the direct relationship with parents, and they know the set of needs of parents. And every time there's a show like Adolescence or anything like that, it creates this kind of fresh impetus around online child protection. Even though it's there, it's been bubbling
exactly.
up for a
And
long
someone
time.
said recently, we'd lovely Adam Burke on from Jigsaw, he was like, yeah, Adolescence comes on, everyone shouts, moans, screams, writes columns, gets upset, and then nothing changes or happens, and we all go back to to our lives. And what you're saying is disrupt this, or what?
I mean, we had a conversation there recently. We're engaging with the UK Home Office, for example, and they asked us what our solution to the dark web is. And all these engagements, we're engaging with UNESCO, we're engaging with the ITU, which is kind of the UN agency in charge of telcos, and the UK Home Office, the Internet Watch Foundation. All these conversations are helping us to refine our product. And that helped us make a change to our development roadmap. So we, on foot of those engagements, we have made the decision, for example, to detect if a child is trying to download the dark web or access the dark web, the Tor browser. Now, I know it's an edge case, but that was kind of highlighted in the likes of Adolescence, where it's kids getting access to, for example, extreme pornography, and their mind is just not able to cope with it, and it affects their behaviour, and in extreme cases leads to a catastrophic event. So while it might be an edge case, it's it's something that's in our power to do because we're at the operation of the operating system layer. We can add that functionality and we can let you, the parent, know your child is trying to access the dark web. Now, the dark web is somewhere that you don't want your child going at all, but at least it gives you the information, empowers you. We stop them from accessing it, but we also give you the power to say, okay, right, what's going on in my child's life that they're expressing interest in going to the dark web and all the
and then there's a
ugliness
whole
that's there.
Conversation, yeah.
And it empowers you to have that conversation.
But you're saying you're at operating level. So Chirp, hoping to goodness, 6 months or whatever, is out there. It's an app or it's a tool? Like, what will it be? What will it
So the user journey will be for you. You'll walk into Vodafone and you'll say, I want a truly safe smartphone for my child. And they'll say, here, have a Google Pixel or a Samsung A52 with Chirp on the inside. Chirp comes preloaded.
Okay.
So
it's not in your app store. Okay,
no,
so
you can't download it over the air. You need to buy them a new device.
Financing and your revenue and your drive is through these
through telcos. So
No
telcos
way,
will
that's very
license from us,
interesting.
and then they'll make it available to
That's
parents.
incredible. So it's already in there on the phone. So it's not like
it's
you
in
have
there
to
on
go
the phone.
about to talk to your mates about it.
So you bring it home. Chirp is in settings, so it can't be deleted or tampered with.
Amazing.
So this is one of the core secure functions of Chirp, right? So it can't be enabled or deactivated on the actual device.
Love
You,
it.
the parent, have to download a Chirp provisioning app. That sounds much more complex than it is. It is, you download an app from the App Store, you enter the date of birth of your child, password protect it, link it to your email address and click apply. It's
Easy.
5 simple steps.
easy,
you do not need a computer science
no,
degree.
it's just
And that's one of
easy.
the big issues with parental controls.
It seems
Oh
overwhelming.
my, parents
yeah.
are like, I don't want to tackle that right now. I'll put that on the long finger, and then they don't do anything, unfortunately. And it is overwhelming. But we've listened and we've made sure that. So, for example, the European Commission did a benchmarking of parental control study in November 2017, and really nothing has changed. But one of the big issues they found was that you need a computer science degree to set up most parental controls. They're just far too complex. So
It's very restrictive. Yeah.
Very restrictive.
Okay.
And the other core thing that they found was parental control apps, which are the state of the art, are far too easy to circumvent by tech-savvy teens. They will just get around them in some way. So we've done everything to make sure that we don't fall into those traps.
Exciting.
So
It's
Chirp
there
can't be deleted.
in your little.
Yeah. And you set it up remotely. You license it from your telco, you set it up remotely. And then if your child is 6, we set the settings that are appropriate for a 6-year-old. If they're 12, they're different. So your child then gets unfettered access to their device. But they know, and we look for their explicit assent as well, because we're trying to bring the kids alongside you on the journey.
So you're communicating this with them?
Yeah, it's all about, so spyware exists, but all of the child protection stakeholders would say, if you spy on your child, they'll find out, and then you'll push them into secret internet
it causes
use.
a lot of resentment too. I mean, it's like, you don't trust me, Mum. You never
Exactly.
did. So why don't I just fuck up? It's
Exactly.
We all know, and there's no perfection here with parenting. We know the good of the parents and the will of that, like tracking and spy, because they're just concerned. And maybe if your child is going through something or in a rebellious phase, or God knows what's going on psychologically, you do that because you think it's the right thing to do. They discover it, and yes, like we all know that it's like saying, "Don't ever have a drink. You're going to have it in the field."
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
They just end up going buying burner phones.
Okay.
That's what That's what's happening at the
Okay.
moment.
Right.
They go and buy a fake phone. They're doing it already
So
to
you
get
need
around
say to your
smartphone bans in
kid, I'm
schools.
going to be doing this.
Yeah. They're already doing it to avoid smartphone bans in schools. Anyway, this is what you end up doing. So we always said from the beginning, we want to reduce familial friction around smartphone use. We want parents and kids to work together for online safety. All of the research was, so our partners in the DTIF project, how we got funded in the first place, are the Anti-Bullying Research Centre and DCU. And their research would all suggest that parents or kids don't mind moderation. They quite like moderation. Because
we love boundaries and rules, don't we?
They like moderation. But the reason they like moderation is because it means that their service isn't interrupted by a paranoid parent.
Okay.
So imagine this, you're walking behind your child and they've got Roblox on, and then you see the F word. And the first thing you'll do, which is what most parents do, is give me that iPad, you're not playing that, that's terrible. So children like the fact that Roblox will blur out or remove a harmful word, because it means they get to continue. They don't want to see the words.
Fine.
It's not what they're there for.
Yeah.
So they like moderation, but they just want continued service. So what we try to do with Chirp is make sure that we're bringing both parents and kids along on the journey. So we're notifying everybody. So in the onboarding process, GDPR requires parents to consent, or parents can consent on behalf of their child, but we're looking for explicit agreement from the child at the onboarding process as well, because we want them to know Chirp is working. But they know they get unfettered access to their device. But if they're being harmed, we'll notify you. We'll block something and notify you. And then we don't remove the information from the child's phone either and send it to you, because we want to make sure that they feel like they've got agency and control.
Okay.
So if there's something harmful and we block it, then we save it in a locked file on the child's device, send you an alert, and we invite you to go to the phone with your child, and we give you advice on how to deal with it, right? So here's how you...
So give me an example of what this would look like. So someone is being a dick to your kid in school, or there's an older male or female. So give me an example of what this looks like.
So generally how grooming attempts, I'll take grooming for an example, right? So some blob in a basement in Belgium contacts your child on their public Instagram page or on Roblox or Fortnite and invites them into an encrypted app, say WhatsApp, for example. Once in WhatsApp, they will use phraseology like, I'm like you, we're the same, my parents didn't understand me either, to gain trust. Once they've gained trust, they will ask your child for a nude image of themselves. Now, that is the tipping point in the grooming attempt. Once your child sends the first nude image, that's the tipping point, because then the groomer will use that nude image to blackmail the child for more images, videos, a meeting, money. You know, sextortion is a big business. It's organised crimes type business. So that is the tipping point. So what Chirp does is Chirp will detect, we've developed a camera intercept, and we can detect if your child has tried to take a nude image. And if they try to take a nude image,
How can you detect? Wow, okay.
So we've developed this camera intercept. So we intercept the camera. We detect we've built our own multimodal language models, which is video and text. Image and text. So we can detect if your child is basically trying to take a nude image. We discard it. We delete it entirely.
Okay.
And we send you an alert, and we send the child an alert. And we use phraseology like, we've detected that your child has tried to take an image that's not okay.
Okay.
Our machine detected it. Machines get things wrong. Your child may have just been in tight athleisure wear or in a bathing suit, but this is the contact they were trying to send it to. Now, if your child is 14, for example, and was trying to send it to her boyfriend, and it's a consenting sexual relationship,
That's a conversation.
what that does is gives you a segue to have a conversation about, perhaps the permanency of the wisdom of sending a nude image to somebody that, this relationship might fail in the future, what happens then with your image, etc. And we give you all that information, how to communicate.
Very interesting.
Or it might actually be a legitimate grooming attempt. And at least then you can go to your child's phone with them and say, who's this guy? Where did you meet this person? And we were talking with the Home Office the other day. Quite often they're seeing that these grooming attempts, they can happen from public, for example, Snapchat, to image being sent within 9 minutes. It can happen within 9 minutes. Your child can be groomed and have sent a nude image. And they're not as edge case as you might think.
No.
I mean, when I started this 8 years ago, grooming attempts, you'd be like, oh, I've heard of that. It was my husband's best friend's sister's...
Or that movie.
Wife. Yes, exactly.
Or the movie, yeah.
It would be a good few degrees removed.
Yeah.
Whereas now, quite often, if I'm in a room of 10 people, one will say, that happened to my sister's child, or that happened to my child. You'd be staggered. It's much more prevalent and much more common now.
And also the meeting up of said. So you're talking about the implications of obviously this blackmailing or the imagery being out there, but then there's also the implications of actual face-to-face meetings, I presume, and the chances of rape.
Much less frequent.
Because they are somewhere remote.
They're usually in a different country.
Right, okay. But then it's the fear of the child being suicidal ideation from the fears of discovery.
And this is what happens.
Okay, so it's actually not really as much about the old-fashioned, that pervert's looking to meet my child in an alley. It's not really about that. It's that online sphere.
It's the child taking part in their own
and also the anxiety, abuse. But you were saying there, the explicit picture to the boyfriend or the person you fancy in class, and also the huge responsibility that therein lies. So say this boy is asked for an image and isn't the boyfriend in class. It's also distressing because I could be going to 10 other boys in a WhatsApp group. And what happens to your reputation? What happens to your life? What happens to the future? But then there's also maybe you're experimenting, you're sending to your female friend, like, are your boobs like that at the moment? Like, there's so much innocence and there's so much non-innocence. And it's where is that line? And I love the beauty of that conversation. You're sending that to Tom, your boyfriend. But let's have a conversation about, do you want him to have that forever? You don't know if you're going to end up with him. and talking about protection, it opens up a huge amount of conversations that you wouldn't have had ordinarily.
Absolutely.
Okay, you've spoken briefly about grooming, and I know there's so much more to all of this, but I just want to get into the bullying. How does that present? Like, how does Chirp enter that chat, so to speak?
Yeah, it's much more nuanced.
Okay.
A nude image is a nude
Because
image.
bullying is much more nuanced.
It is. And so we will use what's called conversational state history to look back at a conversation to...
This is very AI stuff, is it? That you're...
It's to establish context.
Yeah.
So... Because cyberbullying really can only be detected once you have some sort of context. It's usually pervasive over a long period of time. It's repetitive. It's usually from kind of the same person or the same group of people. But there's also non-verbal cues to think about. So, for example, if your child is on a WhatsApp group with their friends and they're commenting but nobody is responding, they're being ghosted on the chat.
I know.
That might contribute
Rena,
to...
I hate being a parent. Like, I hate it.
I know. My kids are 8 and 10, so it's all ahead of me. But so that in and of itself, that wouldn't trigger a cyberbullying event,
or
right?
an alert.
So exactly. But we will take a closer look at that because we would be like, okay, so
Gap in communication.
yeah, exactly. What's happening here? Let's take a closer look. And it might contribute, say, a 10 towards a 100 score. And then maybe the child gets removed from the friends group. And that's okay. That's a little bit more serious now. Let's add another 20. Let's go up to 30 here. And this is a very rudimentary way of me explaining this. And then there might be a few, what were you even wearing today? That kind of thing. And if at one point we combine the non-verbal cues and, say, for instance, reading emojis might show us what language is or what the intent is. And that once that language gets to a point where we say, okay, it's really likely this is a cyberbullying event, then we'll block the last message. That will trigger a notification to you.
Wow.
And we'll save the conversation in the child's phone in a locked file.
Fine.
And we'll invite you to go and have a conversation with the child about it.
And what will you be told in your alert?
We've detected what we believe is a cyberbullying. Maybe
so
a
it's all
cyberbullying
great.
event.
It's all very...
Yeah, but it's all up to you. So you've got the agency. So you could go to the phone with your child. And if you imagine for every one user, we've got 2 moderators because we serve you whatever this conversation was, and you have a chat with your child about it, and you tell us, there's a feedback loop. You can say, yes, you got it right, or no, you didn't, you got it wrong. So our model is constantly being trained, and our detection efficiency may start at 75%, but then it gets to, as close as damn it to 100%. We will never, ever get to 100%. It's not possible.
Has this been tested? Have you started doing, obviously...
We started doing testing. We're going to pilot in Q4 this year here in Ireland, and then straight out to market in 2026.
Why did you call it Chirp?
It was Kilter. It was CILTER. And originally it was like that.
I was going to say that to you, and then I kind of forgot that there.
It was like that
it was
for
Kilter.
like 5 years.
Go on.
But it got to a point where we were having all these conversations with these big international telcos, and we were starting to realise that 50% of people would say Kilter and 50% would say Silter.
Oh, Jesus.
And there's no rule.
Yeah, okay, fine.
And you can't have an international brand where there's any ambiguity around the name. But it came from Content Filter. That was my idea, was Content Filter. It seemed really natural. And it really... I
liked Kilter,
the name was kind of dragged away from me.
Fine.
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah, it's a good name.
But
As
then
is Chirp.
Yeah, we entered into this process with this really amazing design house called Image Now, and we ended up landing on Chirp.
I like it. It's
brilliant.
brilliant.
We did a good bit of testing
and
on it.
it's not aggressive. It's not patronising. It's like I kind of see what that, like, because Kilter is probably quite intelligent.
It's a bit,
do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's tech, isn't it?
It is very tech.
Chirp is like, this is what this is.
And actually the brand value, it reflects the brand values. What we did all these workshops and all that kind of stuff that you do when you're putting a brand together. And really what we want from Chirp is to make families' lives friendlier. Okay. It's reducing familial friction. It's making parents and kids feel like they're collaborating. It's much more friendly because there's all this friction around smartphones.
Okay, but can I play devil's advocate then and be an asshole? I love this, and I think this is going to work a treat because we all need it, and you and what you've done, and like, thank you, because I'm at that's a little bit behind your stage, but nearly there. And it is, I've just told you blanket ban 16 bullshit, right? It's all just me putting, and you're like, well, Rebecca, if all of her friends, I'm like, don't worry about that, Rena. I have it covered. I'm better than all the other parents. But you're right, okay?
Yeah.
But devil's advocate, so what you've done is incredible, and I cannot wait to see how this goes. And I just know that people are going to be all out, like it's going to be, and I know the work, you're at the moment raising funds, the work, the sleepless nights, the lack of time with your own family, the stress this will put you under. But the onus is a little bit on great parents. And yes, we've parent shame and guilt and we all worry about how we're parenting, but what if we're not such super duper communicative? Like you talked there about like the familial tensions. What if you are, and I don't like to use the word broken home, but you are not together, or you're on your own raising 4 or 5 kids, or financially things aren't fab, or there's mental health issues within the home, or addiction. Okay, and we don't all have great open conversation homes, right? We just don't. Yeah. It's just not how life. We're not all seventh heaven. And so is there a fear that the communication is being placed in these two wonderful, like this gorgeous child and this gorgeous mum or dad? But what if that is not happening? And where does the responsibility fall then?
For online, well, look.
So the mom gets an alert, or the dad gets an alert.
Yeah, and if it's a separated family, like, both will get the alert.
Yeah, okay.
Look, the problem that we have is, and when we were engineering this solution, we thought about.
Sorry, I'm saying that because
reporting.
You said at the top of this 3 to 5 year olds.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm already going to shame those parents, and sorry about that. Right. But we can all talk in bullying, and like it's very hard for parents. They're trying to keep up with the neighbour and I can't even understand the reasoning for 3 to 5. I really can't, Rena. Yeah, like you can't say that there's competitive issues in school, or they need to communicate a hockey practice, or they're going to Germany tomorrow. They're not, right? They're 3 to 5. Yeah. They're tiny. Mm-hmm. Their brains can't, like, I can't keep up. I'm sure you, with a massive company, I can't keep up with WhatsApp or work emails, or I get overwhelmed very easily by conversations, stressy arguments, maybe family stuff, Instagram posting, scheduling. I am an old woman. I get overwhelmed, right? So a 3 to 5 year old has a phone and you've placed that in their hand knowing full well, right? Let's not be stupid about it. So sorry, that's why I'm playing devil's advocate. If you have people who are doing that anyway, and we're saying to them, you're going to go have a lovely chat, I just worry about the people who aren't bothered.
And that is the problem. So well over 50% of parents use parental controls.
Okay.
So we are appealing to those 50% or over of parents.
Yeah.
There are, unfortunately, children that are going to fall through the cracks. Parents that are like, here, take that phone just to entertain yourself, be quiet, leave me alone. Yeah. The reality is there's not much we can do about that, because, you know, the parent needs to want it. They need to buy the Chirp-enabled device.
Isn't it devastating?
Need to subscribe, all that kind of... It is.
Because there was devastation with mental health and addiction and issues in this country, and always will be and always have been all around the world. There's always going to be antisocial behaviours or issues within home, right? Always. But I guess we didn't have a disruptor like a phone or a technology that was addictive in children. Maybe it was bad because they were actually more witness to more harmful things, or who knows what was going on in abuse. But on top of that, another thing that they're getting is this other outlet that they're addicted. I don't know. I'm trying to maybe I'm being far too naive about it, but maybe those children could go out and play, or there was other outlets, and maybe that was better for their brains than also having this bad stuff going on and then this bad stuff going on.
I know.
So I'm just saying, it's such a pity we can't just... I don't know, the phone thing, and it's why obviously I wanted you on, terrifies me. And so what you're doing is incredible, but it's sad when you're saying, look, there's going to be this cohort we're never going to get, Rebecca.
Yeah, and look, I literally had this conversation earlier on. I would not want to grow up today. I wouldn't want me as a person to be growing up as a child in this day and age. And I look at, my daughter, and she's 8, and she gets up and does skincare in the morning. And I can't even fathom it. I am like, what? You know, it's their version of, remember we used to get our hands on our mother's kind of discarded pan sticks.
Or lipstick,
you know, that kind of stuff.
Or pan stick, lip gloss, or
But already, she's allowed kind of limited access to YouTube. She's saying, when can I get a phone? And I'm saying 13. I'm hoping that's going to be, that's my intention, 13. When can I get TikTok? When you're 16. That's my intention.
But even 16. At 8, people she knows have TikTok?
She came home from a play date a little while ago, and she said, my friend has Snapchat. And she ran up the stairs and said, Dada said I could get Snapchat. So I roared down the stairs. And Feargal was like, sorry, she came in, she bamboozled me. I was busy in the kitchen and I said we'd talk about it. And I was like, we are not ever talking about it.
Yeah, ever, yeah.
My intention is 16. Because I just don't think that their brains are...
But then the good intention of Feargal is, I love my kid, I'm busy, she's come in, I just want her to be happy. I get rid of her too. You know what I mean? I get that too. He's just like, we're all just, sure you can, love.
Yeah. But it's look, I know too much, and there's a
you
danger
do know too
in
much,
knowing
and I
too
just
much.
know a lot just because I'm in media and I read and I research, and then you know so much because of the actual, you know, I'm sure you've been given a ton of research and a ton of data, right? So we're both kind of coming at it from similar, and then we're parents, and I've got 2 young girls, and you've got a girl and a boy, but. Yeah, you know, she's doing skincare routine, and like there's innocence, and that's kind of sweet, but it's also like, oh, okay, well, where does this lead?
It's the start, exactly. It's the start of a slippery slope.
Why do we care about our image so much at 8?
I'm already afraid, because if you take the suicide and self-harm piece, for example, right? So we've developed this search query intercept, which is browser agnostic, and it allows us to, if your child goes into Google or Bing or whatever and looks for, girls will often look for self-harm. It's cutting, burning, extreme dieting, thinspo, pro-Ana, pro-Mia.
Stop it.
Boys, it's usually more or often more violent. How do I kill myself? How do I hang myself?
Wow.
But you get an alert. We direct them to a support. We detect this harmful search, direct them to a support page, and we send you an alert.
Okay,
and we say, your child is thinking about this.
Well, this is amazing, because I'd be like, what?
It may be a thing. If it's my daughter, for example, it may be a thing that she heard thinspo at school and was like, what's thinspo? And is like, just goes onto Google to look and see. And that's just information. That's fine. But if we'll be able to detect if it's a frenetic search, if it's a meaningful search. So if they're getting directed to a support page and we give them the definition, but they're not happy with that, if they start to try and circumvent the search query or use a different browser or use ChatGPT, we'll detect that and we'll say, this is a meaningful search, and we'll give you a red alert. So you can set up your notifications to get only really kind of urgent alerts. But getting back to my point, girls often will look for self-harm. So that's what I see with the likes of the skincare. I'm like, at 8 years old, and she's doing skincare. It's an early fixation, and she's not on her own in this. It's an early fixation with beauty, with looks, presentation, all of that kind of thing. So that terrifies me.
Is that peer-to-peer? Is that maybe the odd YouTube
That's
video?
Peer
is that
to
friends?
peer,
Is that...
and it's also the odd YouTube video. So she's looking at like influencers on YouTube. Now, she's not allowed to have her iPad, or my iPad rather, she doesn't have one. She's not allowed to look at the iPad in her room, for example. She can only do it when she's beside me.
So you can
or
hear
Feargal,
she's down
so
there
we know
looking
exactly
at
what
it,
she's... And she's only looking at these kind of innocuous gymnastics
Oh.
videos and that kind of stuff. I hope it goes back around to real life experience.
Traditional.
I hope it goes back around to, and it becomes a bit like...
Ugh, the phone is just so
a bit
boring.
like double strapping your bag. It just came back in at some point, and it was cool instead of like the one shoulder
like,
thing.
This
I hope
becomes
it gets
boring.
to that
Like,
point.
I don't want to be
Exactly.
sitting staring at my phone, Mom.
Blasé. It
like,
becomes
it's just boring.
like, yes, exactly. I hope that happens, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, social media giants have bet their future on the battle for attention. They know how to win the battle for attention, and that's why when you open up Instagram, before you know it, it's been 45 minutes, and it's like, where did my day go?
I know about her first husband's rabbit. And
Exactly.
the granny died, and she's...
They know what way we work, and kids just aren't, like, you're educated enough, smart enough, you know your own mind enough to limit your own exposure, and you go, okay, I'm wasting my day here, and you put it down. Kids don't have that.
Of course they don't.
They're just like, I'm enjoying
It's like,
this.
here's a
I'm
massive
bowl
bowl of sweets, and just don't eat too many. Come on.
It requires too much moderation. We expect too much from kids
we do.
in that way. So I hope it gets to that point where it's just naff. Oh my God, I'm even thinking about using the word naff. I'm
No,
such
but
an old
it's
fart.
true. Like the walk. My daughter said to me the other day, she came out of something, a training or something for some. Anyway, and the teenagers in her school, the older kids, 6th classers maybe or whatever, because she's in primary school, we're all like this. We're all of them walking out like this. And she goes, it's so boring, Mom. They're all staring at their phone. I said, what do you mean boring? She goes, well, they're not even talking to each other. Anyway, it was quite sweet.
Yeah.
Now, whether she was doing it to impress me or whether she thought it was the popular thing to say, because I mean, she's smart and kids know what you feel, and I often talk to her about phones. Or she actually found it really repulsive because she's like, none of them were laughing or having any fun, Mum. And I thought it was a great observation because it really didn't look very nice. It was very alien. everyone, and I watch it a lot when I Lewis it into work, and I do listen to pods or I listen to music, and I have my phone down. I test myself for the 45 minutes commute how much I need to go on, because if I'm listening to someone, I don't need to also duel it.
Yes.
But I also have to monitor that. But it's interesting looking around at all of the different commuters going to work or with their kids or going. All of them are staring at their phones. So here's my kids saying, "God, it's so boring."
When I see kids walking down the street with their phones, my instinct is to feel sorry for them. I feel like that looks like a lonely kid.
I feel sorry for myself when I'm sitting on the couch and I have beautiful children around me and a husband trying to have a conversation and other interests and the gym to go to and dinner. I feel sad for myself. Why am I so disconnected and sad that I'm finding solace and fun in my phone? So I, as an adult, realize those days are dark, or I'm trying to disconnect, or I'm it's not boredom, Rena, because there's a lot in the world to do. Yeah. It's just stupid,
it's the
right?
battle for attention.
100%.
What they are serving you is more interesting and more
but yet
fun.
It's not. Yet
it's what our minds are telling us.
My God, our childhoods, and like, again, I don't think, like, we are not old, I joke there, but our childhoods were full of discovery, of thrown out for hours and hours and hours. Were they perfect? Absolutely not. But my goodness, you discovered things through the elimination process, or messing up, or research, or the crack we had, the camps, the Irish colleges, the greens, the exploration. And my God, it was fun. Yeah. I mean, bring back the 90s and noughties for crack. Yeah. And they weren't perfect. Simpler times. And so I do hope that this grasp for attention and addiction goes. I mean, you don't see that happening.
Legislation is probably the only thing that's going to stop it. There's a thing called...
Do the government care?
They do. But the legislation that they have isn't very toothy. I think that ultimately, in order to deal with this issue, the practice of dark patterns needs to be dealt with, where you are constantly getting super served stuff. You know, for example, if your child is using YouTube, every parent should do this, switch off autoplay. So it stops them being
the next. But then companies who are trying to get ads and pre-roll and all that, you know. Yeah.
So, until legislation adequately deals with the likes of how algorithms target kids, and the European Commission are bringing out a new age verification app, that will go some way towards dealing with this issue, because technically in most states you need to be 13 to access social media. Okay. So that may go some way towards kind of policing this issue, because up until now, there was no way. Like, the legislation would compel big tech to make sure that they weren't being accessed by age inappropriate kids. But big tech were saying, but we don't have any way of verifying this as a child. They were using various kind of technologies like facial recognition to detect if a child might be over 13 or not, but they're not perfect technologies. And that was the limitation. So the legislation didn't compel them to guarantee the child was of age. It was like kind of a best efforts type of situation. So until those things are really properly ironed out, then the battle for attention will be won by big tech as opposed to offline experiences, in my view.
Is it gender, like addiction to social media and phones? Is it gender? Like, do you feel like it's more skewed towards gals or boys or
girls?
Really? Yeah. Even though I feel like boys are always on games or on their phones. No, it's a girl thing.
Games, yeah. Boys are only interested really. Well, not only, but in the main, they're interested in games. Girls, it's more social media. It's still technology.
It's like
use.
That whole communication piece. We love to have the friends and the chats and the banter and the.
Like, I mean, we were there in New York in March. Meeting the UN and to talk about radicalisation. So we started with detecting and blocking cyberbullying, grooming and suicide and self-harm content, but then we can very quickly create a model to detect if your child might be getting radicalised by extremists, for example. And it's not necessarily it's a bit of a fringe issue here. Bigger issue in the UK, for example. There's an organisation called Prevent, which is all about preventing extremism, and 25% of the referrals they get are kids under 15. So it's an issue in an awful lot of countries. Yeah. So when we were speaking with them, they were telling us actually games consoles, gaming is where it's the new frontier in extremism.
I would say, yeah.
You know, children are being radicalised over games. So that's where kind of the boys are.
Okay.
The girls, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, etc. Different for the boys.
Do you feel very proud of yourself that this has been your lifelong?
I'll be proud of myself when we get into the hands of the first user. First user, when we've got the whole thing 100, like we're doing a pre-pilot pretty soon. That won't be the full, market ready product, but it'll be a substantial MVP. I'll be really proud once we are in the hands of the first user.
But it's pretty, you're pretty badass. I mean, yes, you've come from media, you've worked, toiled, you've got this great dating company. Your husband is entrepreneurial as well. You're entrepreneurial, but what you're doing is game changing, and it is badass. And it is, yes, it might make you a fortune, but what it is vital.
Oh, you're very kind.
Vital. And no one, like you said, why wasn't anyone? Well, fuck, I'm just going to kind of ruin my social life, ruin my life, be exhausted to do this. And I think it's incredible.
Thank you.
So you must be proud, you must feel, or you just, is the process being exhausting?
There are moments. We took advice at the start, Rebecca, and the advice was, don't do it. There's a reason
Could you
why,
be arsed?
There's a reason why nobody's doing this. You're going to need to get the handset manufacturers on board.
And people will put you off.
They're hard. You're going to need to get telcos on board. You're going to need, parents, the end users. Every time I take that product out, because we can demonstrate it now, every time I take it out and I show it to somebody, they go, take my money. We know 100% this is not a product market fit problem. It is a huge market gap that we will fill. It's the hurdles getting there. And I suppose if I had hindsight, I don't know whether I still would have done it, knowing how hard and long a journey it was going to be. It took us 5 years to get funding in the first place, because it's deep tech and AI. It's cybersecurity. It was going to cost us about 4 million to get a product to market.
And you're also always worried about someone else coming in, a competitor.
Absolutely.
Another in 2 years, will that be a different market?
Absolutely.
So you're always trying to keep on top of the game, right?
100%. And we were like, someone's going to steal a march on us. It's
point,
so obvious. Everybody wants this.
Yeah.
And then the legislation was kind of bubbling up, and telcos were under pressure, handset manufacturers under pressure, big tech are under pressure. Everyone's under pressure to solve this problem because it's becoming such a hot topic. It's every day you read something new. And we were thinking someone's going to steal a march, but still miraculously nobody has.
We still are the only one. Put in this much effort.
Yeah, because it is really hard. I'm not going to lie, and even getting to this point, I would have thought it would have gotten much easier. You get the 4 million in, you get you bring the team together, you get your collaborators. Like, one of our partners in this is the UNESCO chair for the prevention of bullying in schools and cyberspace. We have all of the stakeholders we need. We've got all the support, all the partners, this incredible team of engineers. And I was thinking, once we get to that point where we can demonstrate these core functions, I can show you today that we can, if I open a camera in WhatsApp on the demo device, that it detects a nude image and discards it immediately and sends you an alert in real time, no lag, no noticeable disruption to service. I thought a couple of years ago, once we get to that point, it'll be easy peasy, but it is still kind of like graft. There's a lot of travel, and it's difficult with family to do all the travel. So there's 28 flights in the last year.
But they'll look back, as difficult as it is, and there is distance from them, and there is, your husband taking the heat or other people. There is the looking back of what mum has achieved and how she tried to save a generation
I
of,
hope they see it that way.
I mean, what does Dr. Coleman Doctor say? We've a lost generation, and what we want to see is that the future is bright, right? We want to see, because we have incredible kids in the world, right? They're pretty brilliant, and let's not mess them up. You're talking there about the travel and the people you've met and the extraordinary and even government work. You've learned a lot, right?
Oh my God, it's so interesting. It is so interesting. Actually, do you know what? Looking back 7 years ago with hindsight, I probably still would have done it, because
as a mother, forget about being a human and a smart egg and a businesswoman. Yeah. As a mother, you must be wow.
Yeah, and the learnings are just extraordinary. And as a human being, to be honest with you, the timing was probably good 7 or 8 years ago, because, we were working in our business, and I really felt like I didn't have much more to offer it. There was nowhere really that we could kind of take it. And we had a great team, and I was probably bored. Yeah. So it was probably really good timing for me to be thinking, okay, what do I pour myself into? And it's been extraordinary. The learning and I love the meeting of the new people, learning something new every day. And there really is never any dullness. It really is very varied. So I feel very privileged. I want to get it
You're hungry.
done. I want to get it out. You know, I do podcasts like this and people send me messages and say, where can I buy it? Where can I buy it? And that's going on for the last few years. And I want to be able to say, go to your local Vodafone
January
store
2026,
or whatever. Yeah. And, you know,
and you will.
You can buy it and you can protect your kids.
You will. Will you write a book about your experience? You will. I don't know. There'll be Chirp the book in a few. They will, because what a ride and what an experience and what travel and what people you've met. And I've watched a lot of it even just on LinkedIn, the journey of, you know, Circle, like what was the first?
Kilter, yeah.
Kilter. I'm calling it Circle because you're like, like that to this, to the amalgamation, to it being on market. Like what a journey. And I think a book is in you for this. Thank you so much, Rena Maycock, for joining. Like this is a busy woman. I stalked her and I got her. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And we cannot wait to see, and it will be out there. And what you're going to do for us is just remarkable.
I'm dying for that one chance to, can you imagine the feeling of stopping one child from harming themselves? I'm so excited.
Will you get the data, by the way, of how many interjections, or will you ever know?
Yeah, we'll know all that.
Oh wow,
yeah, we'll know all that.
That'll be insane.
That'll be nice. I'm waiting for that
You're
payoff.
Luck.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.